The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome. It's Thursday. It is National Epilepsy Awareness Day, so I have my purple on, representing all of you both on and off the spectrum out there who have seizures on a regular basis or an intermittent basis. So we support you today. And please write in if you are wearing your purple today. That is the color that to support epilepsy issues and epilepsy awareness. Also, before we do much more in the show, I want to remind everybody, I was supposed to remind you on Friday that the weekend that we set our clocks back, you are also supposed to go around and test all of your smoke detectors to see if the batteries are working. We do that twice a year when we do the daylight savings time, so take the time. I keep being nudged later on in the day. There's somebody out there, it might just be me, but somebody out there who needs to be reminded of that, so that in the event of the unthinkable, that there is a fire in your home, that your smoke alarms will actually work. Please take the time to do that. Safety is of paramount importance to all of us. Now, having said all of those things, we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective, all the different things that come into play when someone in your life or you yourself are on the autism spectrum. It doesn't matter whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, or as I said, if you yourself are the person on the spectrum, we want to be a resource for you to find the things that will help you on this journey to get more done of the things that you want. Let's face it, it's a great big spectrum. Everybody has different needs, different issues, different obstacles, different constraints. We want to help you to get as much done as you possibly can in the direction that you want done. So having said all that, this show is meant to be interactive. We hope that you will participate. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate here, while I remind you that if you go to www.autism-live.com, you will see there's a box there with looks like a computer screen. You hit the play button. You can watch either the live show or the most recently recorded live show. You can also cycle through and pick some of the other recent shows that have been recorded there. But there's also a white box next to it. Put your cursor on that white box, type whatever you want, hit enter, and you and I have an opportunity to talk. Not only that, you have an opportunity to talk with our guests. I will tell you that we're noticing that there is at least a couple of minutes delay. It's not instantaneous. So try to get your question in as early as possible in the interview, because it always happens the person is out the door and walking away and I go, no, there's a question for them. Frequently I ask it to them as they're walking out the door. And so I have a question in a little while. We had a wonderful guest on yesterday, Star Taxman, and somebody wrote in with a comment about colleges in Wisconsin. I'm wondering, Mike Hipple, if you're watching, I don't know whether it was you who wrote that in, but I have a response from Star Taxman that we will do in a little while. I also like to remind you at the start of the show that I am not an expert in autism. And actually, I frequently remind you, too, that nobody on the show will give child-specific advice. In this format, it's just not possible. But if you write in and if you're as specific as possible, a lot of times that helps our experts to know and be able to point you in a direction and let you be aware of things that they're aware of that help you to know what steps to take next, or sometimes to know which questions to ask next. And if you watch the show, you know I'm a big fan of let's ask all the questions, because if we do, sometimes it gives somebody else a question to ask, which leads to answers. It's really remarkable. If you don't know which question to ask, you're flying blind. So anyway, all of that having been said, I am not an expert in autism. I'm an autism parent. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. And I can smile about that now. There was a time when that would not be a smiley thing. But he was diagnosed at 2.5, and he is now about to be 10.5, and he's doing remarkably well because he has had the benefit of a lot of things that I didn't know about that other people told me about. And other people told me how to get the funding for it, and other people said, you got to talk to this person, and when you talk to them, make sure you bring up this, right? So I have a responsibility to pay that forward, and that's what I want to do for you. I hope that you'll pay forward whatever you get. Inform us here of things, because heaven knows there's still tons of stuff that I don't know about. So we had somebody write in and ask a question about something that I don't know about this morning, which is great, because then I'll look into it and I'll have our experts look into it, and hopefully it'll be something that we can share with everyone. Also, I want to bring up, a lot of you are involved with 501c3 charities, which just was in a conversation with somebody this morning about that. We like to give lots of opportunities here on our show for those organizations to be able to, we want to shine a spotlight on them so that they can show people, here's what we do. So if you're involved with a 501c3 and you haven't seen us cover them here, get in contact with us. Let us know, because we'd love to feature them here on the show. Okay. All that said, let's start out with the jargon of the day. This is our morning warm-up where we take one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it in our everyday world so that we know what in the heck are people talking about. Anytime I'm around a group of autism parents or autism experts, I guarantee you there's always going to be some new word that I go, I'm sorry, I just don't even know what you're talking about. That happened once yesterday. It's already happened once this morning. I now have no problem asking people because it's just one word at a time. But back in the early days of autism for me, it was everything. And how do you say to somebody, I'm sorry, I have no idea what you've been talking about for 5 minutes. Could you cycle back and use, regular words that, Joe Schmo on the street understands? It takes a lot of time. So we learn these things piecemeal, a little bit at a time, and eventually we start to build our lexicon, if you will, so we understand what the terms mean. We always give you an actual definition, and then we give you a working definition, because sometimes the actual definition, you go, huh? Scratching my head. I got no idea what you're talking about. Okay, today's term is antecedent. We've been talking about this all week. In fact, Alex Plank on Tuesday gave me a ration of you-know-what because I talked about antecedent modification. He was like, all right, sounds like one of those fancy schmancy ABA terms that doesn't need to be so difficult. Yeah, okay. So what is it? And here we go. Oops, I'm pressing too long. So let's go to our actual definition. Antecedent, anything that occurs or is present immediately before the behavior of interest. All right, it's not our worst definition, right? But let's water it down a little bit and see if we can't come up with a working definition. What happened before? This is really useful for lots of different reasons, but if you, this is my watchword now. If I go and pick up my son at school and when I get there and they say, okay, we just want to make you aware of something that happened today at school. Jem was doing this and then this happened, right? And it could be that some other child approached him and did something and, and he had a reaction to it or whatever, or that he instigated something. It doesn't happen very often, but, I like to be filled in on what happens, and a lot of it's not earth-shattering. But my first question always is, what happened before? Because that is often a clue to what is going on. And when we start to have that sort of mindset, we realize the power in the moment before, because a lot of times we don't have a whole lot of control of what happens within the behavior moment, but we have a whole lot of control of what happens before. When we talk about tantrums and meltdowns and somebody says to me, oh, my child just, I don't know, just having so much trouble with, we're having these tantrums. And when you start to ask, okay, so when is it happening and what happens right before? A lot of times we don't tend to think of that, but they'll go, it always happens in the afternoon. That's funny. I never really thought about that before. Okay, well, what's happening directly in the 5 minutes or the 5 seconds right before the tantrum happens? Oh, it's when, we turn off the TV to do this activity because we have to go pick up his sister, and that's when we have the tantrum. Oh, okay. So it's maybe not, but maybe it has something to do with the turning off the TV. Is there something that we can do around that moment to make the tantrum stop? And it may be for that child that we just don't even turn on the TV after lunch and we go and do something outside and notice that tantrum doesn't happen. Or it could be that, they're watching TV and we give the 5-minute countdown. And so by that time, maybe there's I don't want to turn on, but it's not a tantrum or a meltdown, right? When we get into the mindset of what can we do beforehand, we can head a lot of these things off at the pass. Very, very powerful. And all week long, we've been talking, and we're going to talk especially today and tomorrow about antecedent modifications. What we do to change a behavior in that moment before, in that bubble right before. Okay, so we always have a question of the day for you. And our question today, I love this question. I love it when we get to ask you a happy question. And I love to see your answers. What would make this holiday season really special for you and your family? Now, sky's the limit here, because you can write in and say, what would make me really happy is if my family would acknowledge that my child sees things from a different point of view, and they would change Thanksgiving dinner from 2 o'clock to noon, which is when my child usually eats, right? Which could be absolutely insurmountable in some families that you just, I can just picture my mother going, we don't eat Thanksgiving at 2, regardless of what diagnosis somebody has or what flexibility, we just don't do that, right? That's crazy talk. No one has Thanksgiving dinner at 2 o'clock or 5 o'clock, or at noon or at 5 o'clock. It's served at 2 o'clock. Like it's written in stone somewhere. People get intractable about their stuff, right? So it could be as simple as that, or it could be that you wish for all of your bills paid. All of them just paid off. I gotta tell you, sometimes as an autism parent, I'm very familiar with the idea that there can be days when we stop wishing, because maybe the things that we're wishing for have changed, and so we lose some of our other dreams. I'm telling you, it's on today. Wish for whatever you want. It won't hurt anybody. And it may not happen, but it doesn't hurt for a moment to think, how nice would this holiday season be if all of my bills were paid off? Whew. Strange things have happened for people. Heaven knows I can't do it for you, but, Oprah did that for people and they didn't see it coming. So who knows? But what would make it really, really special for you and your family? I am going to check in later on because I can't wait to see what you guys, I'm sure you're going to write in some things that wouldn't even have occurred to me, which will make me very happy. All right. We always have a topic of the week, and our topic this entire week, I'm not swiping well. Our topic this entire week is holiday strategies. And we're really looking at this from an antecedent modification kind of thing. If we know, for instance, I tend to get really stressed out around the holidays. I'm like, I just can't get enough done. I just can't get enough done. Partially because, there are deadlines that have to do with holidays, and there's deadlines that have to do with work, and I always take some time off at the holidays. So the 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'm like, I got to get a lot done so that I can take time off at Christmas and not have to work, right? Right? But if we look at this from an antecedent modification and go, okay, if we know that's the deal, what can we change beforehand? Do I have to wait to Thanksgiving to get stressed out and be doing all of these extra things to get the time off? Or could I start this week so that it's maybe 5 weeks to get 3 weeks worth of work done instead of 3 weeks? Would that lower the stress? Sometimes we don't know the answer to the question, but it's a question worth asking. What could we do earlier? I am in the mood right now to bake some holiday desserts. That's what I'm in the mood for. So if I'm in the mood for it now, I've been thinking to myself this week, what can I make ahead and freeze so that when the holidays come along and I'm not in the mood, I can just whip something out of the freezer. Asking ourselves, what can we be doing? And it's for us, but it's also for our students if you're a teacher. It's for our clients and our kids if we're working with an individual on the spectrum, but also for our individuals who are out there who are on the spectrum. What stresses you out, and what can you be doing now? What sensory things can you be doing now? I have noticed that my son, while he loves the holidays, he has discovered the almighty earphones, and being able to listen to, he's just now getting into music, and being able to listen to his music when we're out in public, and that he says to me, I don't mind being in the store with you as much because I'm listening to what I want to listen to. And I never really noticed before, because it was a very low grade reaction for him, that all the canned music and all the noise of the store kind of wore on him. So what can we be doing? What are the antecedent modifications to lower the stress and increase the joy around the holidays? We're talking about all that this week, some of the different things that we have going on today. In just 2 minutes, we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back with Lisa Ackerman from TACA. Lisa is the founder of TACA, an amazing, amazing organization, and they have a really incredible blog. I only subscribe to a couple of blogs because there are other blogs that I check in on a regular basis, but I only subscribe to a couple of them. And the Real Help Now blog on TACA I subscribe to because it's an amazing resource. Lisa writes a mean blog. She includes references. She gets it done and gets it done right. And she's got a topic on her blog this last week. Really, really amazing. I know you're all going to be interested in this, talking about some of the medications that are used to treat autism, stuff you got to hear about. A little later on today, we're going to have a school tip, and then we have Breaking It Down with Angela. Angela Persicke will be with us. She is an amazing BCBA board certified behavior analyst. She's going to be answering your questions and hopefully talking with us about some of these antecedent modifications for the holidays. All of that and ever so much more, including your questions on the live feature after these messages. Stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman back for What's Left. I got a nice guest with me today.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
We're going to make some healthy banana nut bread with no eggs. Maybe what you could do, Kristen, I'm going to add the flour.
Okay.
If you can get the bananas ready just by mashing them for me. So I'm going to go ahead and add our flour. Here's 1 cup of my all-purpose flour. I'm going to go ahead and add my baking soda and my salt and my xanthan gum. A half teaspoon of the salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and xanthan gum. Xanthan gum is great, but you can also use gar gum. We can use flaxseed meal if we want to use a different binder. Remember, this is what helps keep your gluten-free flour held together. We're going to also add 1 cup of our organic cane sugar. There's a lot of variations on this as well. I can use maple syrup and honey and cook with it. That's a great way to go, but be careful, you may need to add some more flour into the mix. How are you doing, monkey?
I think it's
Perfect!
I can now say I officially mashed bananas.
You mashed the monkey bananas. So I'll go ahead and take your mashed
Okay.
monkey banana. Thank you very much. All we did, Kristen, lovely Vanna White, is mash up the bananas, getting ready to go for our dessert. So let's go ahead and add egg replacers. We've gotten a lot of feedback from y'all about not using eggs, and I know eggs are a big issue. So we talked about this. We're going to use a little flaxseed meal and arrowroot starch, and I love these, but whenever we use a dry ingredient, and you know an egg has a lot more moisture than these,
Yeah.
so we want to be a little kind and maybe add a little water,
Okay.
or more fruit, or a coconut milk or something along those lines. So for this recipe, it calls for 2 eggs. So I'm actually going to use 1 teaspoon of each of these. Look at me using measuring devices. and add that into my mix, and that will be in place of any eggs that you would want in that recipe. Next up is the cinnamon and the nutmeg. This gives it the yum. Now, for kids who are really sensitive to different spices, you may want to go a little lighter on these. So for nutmeg, this calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon, so you really want to go light on the nutmeg. In fact, that's one you could probably cut back a little bit for kids who are really sensitive to smell or taste. And cinnamon, I love cinnamon. Did you know cinnamon has some antibacterial properties?
Yeah.
I love this stuff. So anytime I can add cinnamon to whatever, if your kid tolerates it, it's a great antibacterial. So I love that stuff. If you have a nut allergy, forget the nuts. But these are the chopped walnuts per the recipe. This is a 1/2 cup of chopped walnuts, and I've got my lemon zest. And again, I love lemon zest. My son has grown to love it as I cook for him more often. And then the last thing that we're going to add here in our recipe is the 1/2 cup of oil. Thanks, Vanna White.
You're welcome.
And we'll go ahead. I use grapeseed. You can also use the different Earth Balance soy-free margarine melted.
Oh, okay.
That would be great. That gives a good texture. Awesome. Our mix is ready to go, Kristen. I'm going to put a little oil on the pan. And I love the consistency. Like you were saying, this looks a little bit like a thick pancake mix. Are you ready?
I think so. I just want to make sure I'm not the one that doesn't make it come out.
So again, it is a bit of a thicker texture. I'm going to go ahead and grab as much as I can out of my little mixing pan here. So let's go ahead and put this in the oven, 350 degrees for about 40 to 50 minutes, depending upon your oven and how long you want it to cook.
Ooh.
And this is what the finished product looks like. Yum!
Looks
so
yummy.
For me, this is probably one of the most nutritious, fun things that I can eat. I'm going to have you try some so you can tell me what you think.
I would be happy to be the guinea pig.
Such
Ooh,
a
it
great
smells
texture.
so good.
So there you go.
Yummy.
I know. But go ahead and give it a shot and tell me what you think.
Let me see. That was really good.
Yeah,
It's
give me
moist,
some of
too.
that. Thank you for joining us here at Autism Live. We've got a great, wonderful snack or breakfast that we can serve up for our kids. That's healthy, ready to go. Kristen, thanks for joining me this
Thank you
time.
for having me.
Love
It was
having
fun.
you here. And we'll see you next time at Autism Live. What's left? If you have any questions, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com or hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. And if you need more recipes while we're in between shows, go off to the TACA website, tacanow.org. Click on gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free recipes and have a ball. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are so thrilled that right now via Skype joining us is Lisa Ackerman. She is the founder of TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. Lisa, welcome to Autism Live.
Hi,
And
it's nice to be here.
We just showed a clip of you making banana bread, so you're no stranger to our viewers. We call on you for a wide variety of things, including your blog, which is amazing, Real Help Now, and people can access that on the TACA site, which is tacanow.org.
Yeah.
And Lisa, take a second and talk to us about, you recently this last week had a blog about drugs and autism. This is a very controversial subject.
Yeah. There's a lot in the news this past week. There are 3 really important stories that have happened. The first story was a study, looks like it was done on 33,000 children. I'm going to refer to my notes so I say it correctly.
Sure.
That 2/3 of children living with autism are taking at least one psychotropic drug. It goes on to say, based on those 33,000 plus, that 35% of those kids were given 2 or more medications, and 15% were taking at least 3. And I mean, let that just sink in.
Yeah.
We can't take lightly psychotropic drugs. There's no long-term studies on this on children, and this study was on children, kids under the age of 18. So it took my breath away. In fact, I think I lost a lot of sleep, cried a little bit. Maybe that was the crying we were talking about.
Yes. We've been talking about how it seems like everybody's had at least one crying moment in the last week, and I asked Lisa if she'd had one yet, or was it still coming? So there we are.
I came clean to you, Shannon.
I knew we'd find it eventually. But not only is this an issue, and I want to talk with you more about this, but we hear a lot on this show that people are writing in saying that their child is taking some form of risperidol or risperidone, or and you've got a blog that's going to be coming up in the next couple of days that involves that particular drug.
Yeah, there are three issues. So issue number one, 2/3 of this study, children are on psychotropic meds. The second news story that came out was Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP for short, basically announced, let me say this correctly, they will be the first U.S. children's hospital to ban dietary supplements from their pharmacy. And this literally was released within hours of the original study by 2/3 on psychotropic meds. And my heart sank again. It's kind of a double hit for families that, are the only options drugs?
Yeah.
And I don't even want to make a joke, and normally I would, but I can't. And what I found the most interesting is in the physician's desk reference, which is the Bible for all physicians to refer to conditions and treatments for individuals. And there were dozens and dozens of different conditions that supplements are in the physician desk reference as the remedy to those conditions. And just to say a few, iron and vitamin B and vitamin D deficiency, which is often, quite frankly, found in autism, is listed. Zinc for people who have different stages of wounds in the hospital. C. diff, Clostridium I can't even. I'll just stop right there. C. diff for short. Probiotics, Flora-Q is treated or used as a treatment. Mitococktails, which includes supplements, is used for mitochondrial disease and dysfunction. Magnesium is recommended for heartburn and constipation. I mean, and the list, I've got a long list, and I feel like parents maybe be painted in the corner with some of our folks out there that are helping us or trying to help us, that, here are the two drugs you can take for autism, risperidol and Abilify. And no, you can't have these supplements. And I can see where CHOP's coming from one aspect. Supplements are not monitored by the FDA, but we know there are a lot of quality resources and tests and things that we can look at to ensure that families are getting a high quality and what's truly on the label. And further, the FDA, what is it? The FDA had over 150,000 deaths last year from drugs that were wrongly prescribed. So, I mean, what track record do you want to go with here? I look at the alternatives for families, and it just gets more curiouser and curiouser, like Alice in Wonderland. And then the third thing, I'm sorry, I'm just on a rant.
No, it's okay. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about this most recent development that deals with a very specific drug that gets that doctors hand out frequently, having to do with autism, and information that all parents who have their children on this drug need to know today. Right. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back more with Lisa Ackerman. Stick with us. You're not going to want to miss this.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. For November, we're going to be working on memory with our kids, and what better way than doing a scavenger hunt. The materials you'll be needing for this activity are a camera, cardstock, scissors, glue, and whatever objects you want your child to be hunting for. Step 1, you're the hunter. Find all the objects you want your child looking for and take photos of them. Now that you've collected all the objects you want your kids hunting for later, print out the images and then cut them out and glue them on a cardstock just so they're organized and isolated. Now that the scavenger hunt template is done, put all the objects back where they belong. Remember, we're working on memory, so put them in places that your kids would normally find them. You want them to be successful. We'll make this one really easy to find. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity with your kids. Remember, the scavenger hunt is supposed to be a fun way to work on memory. Well, until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live via Skype. We are here with Lisa Ackerman, the founder of TACA. You can go to tacanow.org and find great resources, including their blog, Real Help Now. And Lisa is with us today to talk about a blog that was posted last week and one that is coming up, because the idea of drugs and autism, this is a very prevalent thing. And we talked before the break about the fact that risperidol and risperidone, these are very commonly doctors are prescribing them for autism.
Yeah, and it's there was one parent that wrote to me when I posted the article on the TACA Facebook page. Like you guys do, we post and share a lot of news, and then based on feedback and information, then I write about it in more in depth, and that's what's coming up later this week. Mm-hmm. And she wrote me, my son was offered risperidol by a psychiatrist at age 2. At the time, he had no aggressive behaviors. He just wasn't developing speech and was stimming or self-stimulatory behavior all the time. The doctor told me it was for his autism. I knew nothing about biomedical or other interventions back then, but fortunately, my alarm bells went off and I said no to this offer. How many families are out there that are being offered this, but maybe haven't looked at side effects or are wondering if these drugs have been long-term studied, and they really haven't.
And it's important to note that, because I think that parents feel like, well, this is the expert who's talking to me. The doctor says to do it, that this is good for autism. But I haven't talked to a single parent that didn't have some sort of feeling about, I'm not sure if I want to do this. And yet a lot of them go ahead and do it. So talk about some of this more recent news about these drugs.
Well, Johnson & Johnson got in the history books this week, not for the best thing, but the largest healthcare-related settlement of $2.2 billion. That's with a B. Yeah. And the press basically announced the penalties that they were involving fines from the federal government in several states for involving risperidol. And these drugs were falsely advertised, and doctors were also given kickbacks for prescribing these drugs in the elderly community. That's what this fine is for. But please note, this drug has been in trouble in years past. So it's not that just this particular fine, $2.2 billion for the elderly. Risperidol has had issues before.
And in fact, some of the issues that can arise from risperidol are quite shocking.
Yeah, in 2011, a lawsuit was filed, and this will be referenced in the blog later this week, about gynecomastia. And it's a big word. I probably said it incorrectly.
It sounded good to me.
Thank you. But basically, it's a side effect from risperidol for males, where they develop breasts, and in some case, these breasts lactate.
Lactating breasts.
Lactating breasts in young boys and males.
And, that doesn't get on the national news. And yet, these drugs are being prescribed to our young and little boys. You had that the person who wrote it and said offered to her son at the age of 2.
And it's not uncommon. We get that request for example, we've taken over 22,000 incidents of support January through October this year. Wow. Common questions do include, anti-psychotropic medication. So we do discuss that, and it's not that we're doctors, and I'm not a doctor. I've never professed to say I am a doctor, but I love Western med because we've solved a lot of problems with research and medications. I have a deep respect for prescription pads. Yeah. But at the same time, some of these drugs are prescribed to maybe mask or hide issues that may be coming to the forefront. That maybe an underlying medical condition that can be treated. And I think when you have a child on the spectrum where the hallmark of the disability is the inability to communicate or communicate effectively, they can't tell us that, hey, I got reflux, or I feel like I got a migraine, or my stomach is blowing up. I have to poo like nobody's business, and they communicate that to you. So for parents, they really, really have to be Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
What's the issue? And I think we shared a form with you this morning that helps kind of create a plan. What are the top 5 issues that your kid's doing, whether it's autism related or not? It could be self-stimulatory behavior, aggressive, self-injurious behavior, leaning on furniture, clues that will be really valuable for your doctor. And then I followed up with like top 5 things your kid needs to learn. Maybe they have no sense of safety and they can run in front of cars or wander if given the opportunity. So I really think for parents, the best strategy is to bear down to those elements as to what is going on with your child. Have that dialogue with your physician, hopefully a MAPS physician, trained in chronically sick children and health issues. And then figure out why, if we're going to use these medications to buy us some time, whether it's self-injurious behavior or severe aggression, which I understand, buy us some time, but pull back the layer of the onion to figure out what's happening with these kids.
Yeah.
And can we do something to help those possible underlying medical issues? I just think they deserve that chance.
They absolutely do.
I don't feel like medication is the solution, although there are some days, Shannon.
I understand. Believe me, I understand.
Sorry, there's the joke, and I can't do autism without joking, and this is a very serious issue.
And we appreciate your spirit. So I want to say that document that Lisa is talking about, where you can list those things, that is available for you right now on our Facebook page. You can go and download it. It's a PDF. You can download it. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. And one of the things that you said to me this morning is it's a great way of looking at what your priorities are and making it abundantly clear so that you can be asking yourself, why are we doing this and why are we doing that? Oh, right, it's right there on the page. This is why we're making decisions, and this is what's guiding us.
And the most beautiful part, Shannon, is save those. If you update it once or twice a year, you'll look back and go, he doesn't do that anymore.
Yes.
Or, oh my gosh, my daughter learned this, and it was on our hit list 3 years ago. So it gives you perspective, but also gain focus as to why you're taking matters and steps you're taking, as you were saying. So
really incredible. Can you stay with us for one more segment, Lisa?
Are you kidding? Hard to get rid of me. Let's do it.
So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back. I want to go back to talking a little bit more about CHOP and the supplements and why this is so disheartening.
Yes.
And to bring up a little bit about why this hospital keeps coming up as a usual suspect so that we can take a measure of should we be paying attention to them or not. So stick with us. More with Lisa Ackerman after these messages.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about the first step to empowerment. Accept and embrace this challenge. Sometimes you have people that support you in your denial. Maybe it's your husband. Maybe it's your mother. When I expressed my concern to my pediatrician about Wyatt losing language around the age of 2, his response, maybe he's a late talker. He's a boy. Let's wait and see. But what about the temper tantrums? What about the fact that he put his head through the kitchen window? What about the bite marks and scratches all over my arms and chest? He said he's probably just frustrated that he can't express himself. Let's wait and see. But autism doesn't afford us that luxury. Of course, I was relieved with my pediatrician's reassurances, but I should have gone with my gut, because if I had, I could have gotten a diagnosis 2 years earlier. And I lost 2 valuable years that could have been spent on early intervention. And finally, when Wyatt was diagnosed, he was misdiagnosed. But of course, part of that was my problem too. I lied in a lot of those parent questionnaires so things looked better. I can't turn back the hands of time, but I can recommend that you face this challenge head on. Denial prevents us from walking a path we eventually will have to walk anyway. The sooner you face the truth, the sooner you can help your child. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Via Skype, we have with us the wonderful and fabulous Lisa Ackerman. She is the founder of TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. I want to encourage you to go to their site, www.tacanow.org. When you go there, you will see a host of resources that you can shop around and look at all kinds of things. You even have a live chat feature, which I just think is incredible, Lisa. And of course, there's the blog, and you can click on the blog right on that front page, but you could spend 3 days looking at all the information that's available on the TACA site, and in fact, I encourage you to do that. You will learn and walk away with things that are valuable today as you're on this journey. So first of all, thank you for founding TACA. You know I'm a huge fan.
Oh, I appreciate you. You're very kind.
No, it's all the truth. And I also love the blog. I am so glad you kind of came to it a little late. You had to have your arm twisted a little bit to start a blog. We were all waiting for when is TACA going to have a blog, but you're doing it right. And so if we had to wait for it, it was worth waiting for. And earlier we were talking about the role of medicine in prescribed medicine in autism with some dismay. And you brought up the fact that CHOP, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, has now made an announcement that they're going to take all supplements out of their pharmacy.
Yes.
And this to me is so dismaying, but I have to say for myself, and only for myself, I look at it and go, what is it with this hospital? Where is the disconnect? And this is me asking this question, and you don't have to answer it because I'm sure none of us knows, but you know, this is the same hospital that we reported about earlier last year when they had a patient who needed a transplant and they had made the decision not to do the transplant based on the child's mental capacity. Very dismaying. I understand that it was all solved amicably after we all had to sign endless petitions. And I don't know. I have been told that this hospital until recently, it's a children's hospital, had a restaurant in its building that I find shocking.
Yeah, fast food restaurant, one of the top 3. I think that maybe that fact alone kind of dictates, it welcomes you to the hospital and what they believe in. I know for families, convenience is really important. But I think also knowing and reading up on all resources, not just the doctor you use, the facilities they live in or work in, and products that perhaps you'll consider for your child. Do your research. Ask other families, were they helpful? And really connect yourself in that community. In fact, in that area, we have a great TACA chapter that can help refer you to resources based on your child's unique medical needs. And my mom always said, if you don't got something nice to say, don't say it at all. So.
Well, and you're a lady. I am not. So I'm willing to say things because it just, I don't know anybody at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, but I go, why does your name keep coming up in these ways that are not conducive to our kids? But we've had a question come in on the live feature. I have a question for Lisa. When she mentioned the all-natural supplements such as magnesium for constipation, does this mean it's okay to take? Thank you. Also, what are her recommendations to help with attention for children with ASD? And of course, I always say on the show, Lisa, that no one on the show ever gives child-specific advice. And Lisa told you she's not a physician, so she is not in the habit of ever prescribing anything to anybody. But having said that, what would you like to say to this person writing it?
Those are some really great questions, and there's some great alternatives out there. So magnesium, for one, for constipation, which seems to plague a lot of children on the spectrum. Milk of magnesia has been on the market for, I think over 50 years. It's not milk, it's not a casein derivative, but you can talk to your doctor about milk of magnesia, or there's even magnesium tablets that you can be taking. And it really depends on the back of the bottle and the age and the weight of your child. So you want to dose according to age and weight, and your doctor can really help you there. So, but I love magnesium. I think it's one of the best vitamins that we can offer our children, especially for kids with constipation and autism. And then the second question was on attention, right?
Yeah, yes.
What? No, I'm just kidding. Again, I can't help it. Well, again, I'm not a doctor, but we work with thousands of families. We do have a physician advisory board, and they've offered some alternatives to families using 3 really great supplements. And the 3 are EPA, DHA, which are an essential fatty acid that you can get at Mother's, Whole Foods, or good quality health food stores. And 2 other supplements, Wonder Powers Unite, and they're great supplements. And I'll say the name and spell it because they are I don't know why they're spelled this way. They're just named.
I have my pen ready. I'm going to take this down.
Supplement number 1 is Pycnogenol, and that's PYCNEGNOL. And the second one is quercetin, QUERCETIN. Sorry. So let me say that again. If I was in the spelling bee, I would have lost. So QUERCETIN, quercetin.
And
so
is that the same as CoQ10?
No, totally different.
Okay, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah. And those 3, I started, my doctor recommended those 3 to my son. And when he was offered Ritalin for his attention, because he had severe ADHD, I gave him those 3 Wonder Powers Unite supplements, and his attention improved dramatically. And it took about 2 weeks for me to see that improvement personally, so I'm just sharing my story. But since then, I've heard from thousands of other families that use those 3 together and have seen a very, very positive difference in their child. Now, mind you, EPA, DHA, if your child has a fish allergy, you may want to consider something else. But again, work with your doctor on dosing and talking about those different supplements. But when thousands of families write you back, like, my God, my kid's paying attention. It's awesome. Yeah. I need to pay attention to that, and I love those stories.
Well, and you mentioned MAPS doctors, so talk briefly for people who don't know what that is. Explain what a MAPS doctor is.
MAPS doctors are their Medical Academy of Special Needs, and really what their focus is on chronically sick children. Some of those kids have autism, some of them don't, but for the most part, they're trained. They go through an extensive training, mentoring. They have to be certified and tested, and then they're monitored for efficiency and patient feedback. And what I love about medmaps.org, what I love about them is that these doctors will take the time, like we talked about in the first segment, to peel back the layer of the onion to figure out what's happening. Why does that kid hit themselves? Why are they constipated more often? Why can't they sleep at night? Why do they have a rash all over their body that seems to move? Why do their pupils misdilate? Why are they aggressive? I mean, some of these features that you see may be in their autism diagnosis, but there may be an underlying medical condition. So these doctors are willing to take the time. They sit down and work with you, run the tests from Quest and LabCorp, the most standard labs in the United States, and work with the family to derive positive solutions, whether it's in Western medicine or an alternative and complementary medicine that is available.
And I just want to say, too, if somebody is just tuning in and they're unfamiliar with these things and they go, okay, this is a whole other world,
yes,
we really welcome you to go to TACAnow.org. You're going to find a whole bunch of information there, and they can find out if there's a meeting that's close to them that they can get support. They're going to find resources there, and you also have TACA mentors. Would you talk briefly about that, because I think people would like to know about that?
Yeah, it's one of our 12 programs, free to families living with autism, and think of it like Match.com without the dating. So we got to have a little fun. So no, I'm joking. We connect you to a parent in your area that may be 1 or 2 years or more further down on their journey, and that can help you with local resources, just being that friendly face when you're going through IEP season. And also answering questions like what we're doing right now. They're all trained as well, insured and monitored here at TACA. And they have an escalation path. When they don't know the answer, they can refer up here to the TACA office. So This year, I think we'll make over 600 connections. So those are 600 new buds that will walk around arm in arm in their autism journey to help them lean on each other.
Really remarkable, and that's a free resource, and so people can find out more information about that. But really, it is endless, the amount of information that is available for you on that TACAnow.org site. Really want to encourage you to go there. Lisa, I thank you so much for all of this information and for all that you do. You've been helping us out here and doing a cooking segment, and lest anybody think that that's just all that you do, we've got a new segment that we're going to be starting with Lisa, where Lisa's going to be answering some really pivotal questions. I think you guys are really going to love it. But go to TACAnow.org and you can get started there and become a TACA parent. And you can also download that form that Lisa was talking about on our Facebook right now. Go and check that out. Put it up on the refrigerator. Fill it out and put it up on the refrigerator, and I think it'll make a big difference for you. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Oh, well, I appreciate you, Shannon, and all the hard work you do. And thanks, Em, for having me on. And
we adore you.
I adore you guys too. And for parents out there in Autism Live land, no, autism is treatable, and there's things that you can do, and you should have a lot of hope for answers that they are there, and your kid can get better. So bless y'all.
Absolutely. You have a great weekend.
Oh, you too. Thanks.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back with a news story in the Autism Daily Newscast about something that may help us to diagnose our children much earlier than we ever thought possible. So stick with us.
Hi everyone! Thanksgiving is fast approaching, and we thought it'd be really fun to teach you a gluten-free stuffing recipe with help from Breads from Anna. Now this is a 2-day recipe, and so day 1 we're going to make this bread. Here's what you're going to need. 1 package of Breads from Anna bread mix, 1 packet of active dry yeast, 3 eggs, 1 tablespoon apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1/4 cup of oil, 1/2 cup of warm water, 1 teaspoon ground sage, thyme, rosemary, 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, and then a pinch of tarragon, onion powder, marjoram, and garlic powder. On day 2, when we put the stuffing together, here's what you'll be needing. 6 tablespoons of butter, 1/2 bulb of fennel, 1 chopped onion, 2 chopped carrots, 1/2 cup of gluten-free chicken broth, 1 teaspoon of ground sage, thyme, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt and pepper. All right, step 1, we're gonna dissolve our sugar into our water. And then we're gonna go ahead and add our active yeast. We're gonna dissolve all these together. So we're gonna just set this aside. Now we're gonna take our bread mix right on over to our mixer. So first things first, we're gonna put all our liquids together before we add in our dry bread mix. We're putting in 3 eggs, our oil, apple cider vinegar, water, and our water, yeast, sugar mixture. We're gonna blend these all together. So once our liquids are all mixed together, we're gonna go ahead and add our bread mix. We're also going to add all of our spices now. Okay, now that our bread's been mixed, we're going to spoon this into a bread dish, and we're going to let it rise for about an hour. Okay, so now that we've let this rise for about an hour, we're going to bake it at 375 for another hour. All right, it's been an hour, so let's grab our bread out of the oven. We're gonna let this cool for a little bit, and then we're gonna actually cube the bread, and we're gonna toast it in the oven just a little bit longer to dry it out so that when we add it to the vegetables, it'll make a really great stuffing. So as you can see, we've toasted our little breads here in the oven, and now what we're gonna do is saute some of these vegetables so that we can mix it in with the bread and make our final stuffing combination. So we'll start with the butter. So we're going to start with our onions so that we can make sure these are good and cooked before we add the other vegetables. They cook a little bit longer. Okay, those are looking pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and add our fennel, our carrots, our garlic, and then all our spices. So you're going to want to cook this until the carrots especially are nice and soft. Our vegetables are pretty soft here, so what we're going to do is go ahead and mix this with our bread. We're also going to go ahead now and add our 1/2 cup of broth. So once these are mixed together, we're gonna go ahead and pour it into our greased baking dish, and we're gonna bake it an additional 20 minutes at 350 degrees. Okay, I think it's ready. La, la, la. All right, and we can add a little garnish here. Perfect, and it's ready for Thanksgiving dinner. To learn how you can win some breads from Anna, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autismlive. Until next time, happy holidays.
Welcome back. Our featured story from Autism Daily Newscast today, the title is Researchers Find That Autism Presents in Children from First Weeks of Life. An American study has found that infants and babies affected with autism are less likely to hold eye contact and be aware that a person is communicating to them. The research, conducted by Emory School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia, and published in Nature Journal, looked at the deficit in eye contact of infants aged 2 and 6 months. Deficits in eye contact is one of the indicators that a child is autistic. A marked decline in sustained eye contact was observed by researchers in children between 2 months to 6 months in age who later went on to be diagnosed as autistic. Infants who were not diagnosed with autism continued to hold a gaze for a longer period of time. The researchers hope to use this eye tracking tool as another form of early diagnosis for autism and ASD. The study used videos containing social cues and involved 59 children of high risk of having autism because siblings had a prior diagnosis and 50 infants at low risk. Talking to the BBC News on November 6th, lead researcher Dr. Warren Jones said, "It tells us for the first time that it's possible to detect some signs of autism in the first months of life. These are the earliest signs of autism that we've ever observed." Certainly a very interesting study, and of course you can read this in complete article and more about this study and the ramifications of it at www.autismdailynewscast.com. You will also find other information up to date information about autism there as well. Fascinating study. All right, we'll be back after a few moments. Actually, we want to go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following Jack Riley, a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He is now 5, and I believe the video that you're going to see today, he is 4 years of age, so he has already had 2 years of treatment, and we're seeing his program, how it is shifted and changed so that a lot of his program is very social at this point. So take a look. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Exciting.
I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
We had Lainey checked this week by the regional center, and they say no autism, but she does have a little expressive speech delay. Can you say up, please? Can you say please?
Please.
Good job. Mwah. Jack Riley a kiss. You want to? Oh, here she comes. Give him a kiss. Oh. That's so nice. Can you give him another kiss? Maybe a hug. Can you give Jack Riley a hug? Oh, Jack's giving you a hug. Didn't want to put my head in the sand and think because she's ahead of where Jack was that means she doesn't have any issues.
We're glad we did it. We did it just because our only experience with a child is autism, the A word. And so we didn't know what a typical child is like in our own home. And we're 99.99999% sure we have, now we have a typical example in our house. They're both extraordinary though. She actually has the perfect emotional makeup for a typical sister of a A-word brother. She, now that he used to knock her over and stuff, now when he starts to take a step toward her, she just stares at him and screams. Ah! It's hilarious. And he backs down. Can you say please?
Please.
Can you say thank you? Okay. Can you say thank you again? Thank you. Can you say dad? Can you say anti-disestablishmentarianism?
Where's my waffles, Daddy?
You want to make you a new one?
Yes.
Can you look me in the eye and say, yes, please, Dad?
Yes, please.
No, you're not looking at me.
Yes, please, Dad.
Okay, I'll make you another waffle.
Really remarkable family and a remarkable little boy. And of course, many of you can relate to once you have a child on the autism spectrum and the idea of having a second child. And if you watch this entire series, you will see that early on when they disclose that they are pregnant with the second child, and they talk about some of their concerns while they're pregnant, and when they discovered that the new baby was going to be a girl, a sense of relief, because not that that got them out of the woods, but that the odds were greater in favor of having a neurotypical child. And, you know, even as this young girl has been growing, their ongoing concern and watching for things, I think a lot of you can relate to some of that. And of course, she's doing so wonderfully. And so the focus remains on getting Jack Riley the help that he needs, but being a big brother, teaching him the skills of how do I interact with a little sister who is going to be a lot more delicate than I'm going to be, getting a sense of himself and of his strength and what's appropriate. Really remarkable, especially in the last few episodes. We've seen that before he would just go up and knock her down. She is walking, but he would just go up and knock her down. And to him, that's social interaction, right? But how they effectively deal with that and build up and reward him for, instead of just punishing him every time he knocks her down, how they really build up a reward system and made it clear to him about how when you treat people nicely, including treating Lainey nicely, how everybody's happier and you're happier, and making it worthwhile for him to have a good interaction with her. I think so many times we have the expectation that kids should just know how to do that. But, you know, we always say they didn't come with an owner's manual, and they didn't get an owner's manual on how to be a sibling or how to play with other children. And I know that for some kids who are not on the spectrum, and even some kids who are on the spectrum, it's easier than it is for other kids. But it doesn't change the fact that we have an owner's manual that we can give our kids and that we can give ourselves now, so that we can learn how to get that progress that we want. So I encourage you to watch this entire series, use it as a tool in many, many, many different ways to help you to do what you need to do and to help those in your lives to learn the things that they need to know. Really remarkable family, and so thrilled for them that things are going so well. It's been a great service to our community that they've allowed these cameras to come in and be present while they go through this very difficult intervention. Really remarkable. So we're going to take a break, and we are going to come back with more of Autism Live after these messages.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's gonna play football, he's gonna do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Piché, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yes.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative of what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Mark it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. One of the things, we were talking with Lisa Ackerman earlier, and one of the things that we referenced, I had said to her before we went on air, I said, okay, is it just me? But it seems like most of the women that I know that I've been talking to in the last week have all confessed that at some point in the last week they have spontaneously at some point burst into tears. And this, kind of cuts, we did spell them again. Okay, I'm just looking at what somebody wrote in about the supplements, and so she did spell them again, just so that we're clear. Write if you need it again, and I'll make sure that I get it for you again, because I'm not sure that I wrote them down correctly. But in any case, talking about spontaneously bursting into tears, and so somebody this morning sent me a blog that they said, this kind of goes hand in hand with everything that we've been saying. So this is a lovely blog. It's available in a blog site called North Shore Mums. It's northshoremums.com AU, so it's in Australia. And the title of the blog is How to Ride the Emotional Roller Coaster of Motherhood. And the first sentence, if this doesn't grab your attention, then, it's just the people that I know. It says, I'm wondering when I became so cranky. Yes, ding, 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 ding. Actually, I probably couldn't put a date to it. It was around the time that I first became pregnant, and then in one crazy weekend, moved house, had a miscarriage, found out that my fiance and I were likely to end up in family court over a relocation issue with his ex. Then I got married, had a baby, a court case, another pregnancy, and now 2 young children and an 8-year-old stepdaughter. I love sleep. Who doesn't? And haven't had a lot of it the past 3 years. When I think of it like this, I can understand how I became Mrs. Cranky Pants. But enough about me. None of us has a baby in fairyland. Bills come in, shopping and washing need to be attended to, and sadly, sometimes loved ones die in the midst of our child-rearing years. And she goes on to say that nothing prepares us for this emotional roller coaster. And I would encourage you to read it because it's really an amazing blog, and it's somebody who practices acceptance commitment therapy and talks about how beneficial that has been. And she says, here are a few strategies that work for me when I remember to use them. Many of these come from my training and work using acceptance and commitment therapy. So I'm just going to give you the titles of these because I think we've been talking about holiday strategies. Boy, this is right in the neighborhood. Okay, so the first one is, and she suggests that when pushed to the edge, these are the tools in your tool belt. Number 1, stay in the moment. So easy to get ourselves thinking about things that have happened in the past, things that are gonna happen in the future. One of the biggest phrases in my life that I had that aha light bulb moment was when somebody said to me, the truth is that joy only happens in the present. So if your head is stuck in what happened 5 minutes ago or what may happen 5 minutes from now, remind yourself joy happens in the moment. So try to be in this moment. Man, that kicks my keister on a regular basis, but it's something we can try. It's a muscle. We can at least work on it, right? Even if it's just for a second. I love this second one. Be kind to yourself. It's amazing what we'll forgive someone else for that we will beat ourselves up for. So try to remember to be really kind to yourself. Even ask that question when you're having a rough day about what could I do today to be really kind to myself? Could I go to bed early? I did that last night because I thought, what could I do to be kind to myself? The third one is remember what sort of parent you want to be and what you need to do right now to put that into practice. This is a great one for stopping you in the moment when it just all feels like it's caving in, to have that picture of, wait a minute, what kind of parent do I want to be? And then, is there something I can do right in this moment? Evelyn Gould talks about all the time about, our values and having that needle pointing towards our values. And when we do that, I think that's when we get in the moment, we're willing to be kind to ourselves, and we get closer to what we want to be. So if you think to yourself, if you've got that moment and you're yelling and you catch yourself yelling and you say to yourself, wait a second, what kind of parent do I want to be? I want to be the kind of parent that apologizes. I want to be the kind of parent that takes a breath and, shows up and has perspective taking, whatever it is for you. Love this one too. Number 4 is let the feelings come and go a bit like clouds passing in the sky. This is something that I've been talking about this week and that I'm welling up thinking about it. All the people that I've been talking to about, everybody's saying, I was here and I just burst into tears. I do think that that's one of the humbling things about being a woman is that happens and I don't know whether it's that we allow it to happen or we can't stop it. But when I look at all of our wonderful dads and all the men in the world, I think that they have all the same emotions that we do, but for whatever reason, they don't have access to or permission a lot of times to let those feelings come up and get out. And we know they come and they go, and sometimes it's just better afterwards, like, you know, when things clear after a rainstorm. So if you have to have the cry, don't get stuck in it, and let it go. Number 6 here, get some fresh air every day. Boy, amen to that. Laugh as often as you can. Forgive yourself often. And when we do these things, we will find that we are more centered and closer to being who our expectation of who we should need to be. So again, if you want to read more, and she writes specifically about each one of these things, go to northshoremums, mums.com.au. The title of the blog is How to Ride the Emotional Roller Coaster of Motherhood, and the author is Louise Shepard. Thank you, Louise, for reminding all of us. Great strategies for us today and going through the holiday treadmill. All right, stick with us. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tacs, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I mentioned earlier today that we have a lag in our live feature, and so send your questions in early, because what happens often is that the person is gone and then I see that somebody has written something in a minute later. So yesterday we had Star Taxman on, and she is an advocate and specialist in the area of autism, and in particular in the transition time, getting a student ready for transitioning, and the period of time after the transition, making sure it's successful. So somebody wrote in in and because we were talking specifically about 504s. And we talked a little bit more about it off air with Star Taxman, because I used to teach high school as well, and some of my students had 504s, and some of your students might have 504s even in high school and younger. So she was telling us later on that an IEP and a 504, the difference being that your child is entitled to an IEP in K through 12 if they have an autism diagnosis. And when you have an IEP, the school is responsible for paying for whatever the accommodations are in the document. And I was asking, how come some of my students, when I was a teacher, had a 504 plan? Well, the 504 is an education plan, but the school is not on the hook to pay for it. So if you have an 11th grader and they have a 504 plan, that's what the difference is. IEP, school has to pay for it. 504, they don't. And a 504 continues on and can continue on through college. Well, somebody wrote in and said, and I don't know, and I asked earlier if Mike Hippel is watching. I didn't know if Mike himself had written this in, but it all depends on where you're living if the 504 will be able to be done at college. And they wrote, I know in Wisconsin we will not have anything like an IEP at any college. And we spoke specifically with Star. Star said that she has actually done work in Wisconsin, and in fact you can have a 504 in colleges, in all of the colleges in Wisconsin. It's a question of having to ask for it, like so many things. If you don't know what to ask for, but that you can have 504s at colleges at any states, in any place in the United States. And if you have questions about that, about how you go about requesting a 504 and how you negotiate that with the college and put those things in place, Star is a consultant and she can help you out if you want to consult with her. She said she'd be happy to talk to anyone, to the individual who themselves is going to college or the parents. And as I said, she was with us yesterday. Her website is www.staradvocacy, but Star is with 2 R's, so STARR advocacy.com. You can go there and get hooked up with Star so that she can give you more information about that. She's a wealth of resources. For so many of you who've been writing in about, we don't know how to get ready for college, we don't know which college to go to, how do you pare this down, we don't know what programs to do, or you're not wanting to do college, but you're wanting to do something that's vocational training after school. I was talking to her yesterday, and she literally has hundreds of different resources to be able to give families. That is her business, so we encourage you to reach out to Star, see if that's a good fit for you, and ask for her help and to pick her brain about her many, many resources. Someone else had written in just a few minutes ago saying, are there any organizational tips that you can give me for my skills binder? I heard Shannon mention a mastery binder in addition to her child's normal ABA binder. I feel like organization is important when trying to run through all the programs for my 5-year-old son. Thank you. Yes. And I'm going to talk to you just briefly about I believe that you can also on IBT that they have instructional videos about how you might want to set up a binder. So I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version and the old version because there's much more technology available now. But I would recommend that you, and anytime you're starting an ABA program, you're probably going to be asked to get at least one fairly big binder. I would guess, the ones that there's 2 inches and then there's 3 inches, I'd go ahead and get yourself a 3-inch or a 4-inch for the main binder. And I like to have the ones that have the wraparound plastic, so there's a sheet that you can stick the sheet in the front, and then they have the little pockets as well. And most binders that I have seen that parents have that put this together, they also on their binder get a paper hole puncher that fits onto the 3-ring binder as well. Ooh, so you never have to go look for the hole puncher. A really, really great thing to have with you. And then get some sheet protectors because you're going to want some sheet protectors. And anytime you decide to add a lesson to your child's program, you're going to want to print out the lesson on skills. And usually what they do when they're doing therapy with a child is that they'll put that into the one part of the sheet protector, and then you can put the teaching points, anything that will help you to figure out what's going on the back side of the sheet protector, and then you're going to want to put the data sheet to track it the next page in, but don't bother to put that into a sheet protector because that's going to change very quickly. You know, that sheet may only last you a day or 3 days or a week, and then you'll be able to move on to the next one. So don't even bother putting that one in a sheet protector because you'd constantly be taking it out. It would be more wear and tear on the piece of paper. Poke holes in that one, put it in. And then if you know, for instance, let's say that you're working on 3 different lessons in the language curriculum, right? You can decide for yourself how to tab them. Sometimes people like to tab them by programs that they want to do, you know, that are from a different curricular area, so they could put all the language ones together. Other people like to do it by frequency because if you have a play date one and it only happens once a week, maybe you put that, you know, towards the back in its own little tab. So you can decide for yourself how you want to organize them so that they're easy to do. But most of the time, what therapists will do is that the first page in the book will be their checklist. So it'll list all the programs that you're currently working on and have boxes next to it that you can fill in and say, you know, this is Tuesday. So on Tuesday, and then you can go through and check off and go, look, we did this, 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 and this, right? So that at the end of the day, you can look and say, oh, look at what we didn't hit, and I really want to make sure I get these lessons in. Really a great way of tracking what have we done lately. But then you can flip through and say, oh, here's the lesson that I want to do today. There's the teaching points, and you can track the data right there and take your notes on the teaching points, whatever you want to do. That's really, really useful. Once your child has mastered something and they've met the criteria where you feel like, okay, I know, you know, that I really feel like they've gotten it, but you don't want it to slide into oblivion. We have to have some maintenance on that. Then that's where the second binder comes in, and it's a maintenance binder. It can be much thinner, and you put things in there. Just take it out of the first book, put it in there. So you decide how often, whether it's once a day or once a week, that you take out the maintenance folder, have a checklist there so that you can go, look, I haven't run this in a long time. And for me, in terms of the maintenance folder, I'm always thinking about, this is when I can get really creative. Since it's in maintenance, you want to make sure that it has legs. And so if what you were working on was identifying colors, sometimes it's just a matter of in the morning looking and going, okay, what's in the maintenance folder? Oh, working on colors. So as you go through the day, and it might be that you're driving across town to take your child to a speech appointment, and you decide, you know, they've mastered green and red and yellow, so you have a really fun time in the car and you say to the child, you know, I know, let's see if we can find 25 things that are yellow on the way over, and they're labeling and pointing the things that are yellow. So really a fun opportunity when things are in the maintenance folder to figure out, you know, how am I going to make, what's the fun way I'm going to check in on this lesson today and make sure that my child can do it. But again, I think there are much more advanced lessons on IBT if you want to figure out how to set up your books. And I think there's much more technology now, ways that you can interact with technology in doing that. So you might want to check that out, ibehavioraltraining.com. All right, we are going to take a break. Hopefully that answered enough of your question, though. And we're going to bring Angela Persicke, BCBA, in to talk with you and answer your questions. So now's a great time to be writing in more questions. Stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3. They shut down, and sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up. She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really
do anything. She just basically lined up her toys and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? Well, what Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job! Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know. In most manuals, you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for Skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November, and it seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new Skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have with us in the studio right now the wonderful Angela Persicke. She is a board-certified behavior analyst with a lot of experience working with children on the autism spectrum, and she is the assistant director of the Autism Research Group. I frequently get that wrong, so any day that I can get it right, it's a good day. Okay, so we're going to start with talking about some of the questions that you guys have written in through the night. I want to start with, my son is 7 and has autism. He is mainstreamed in 2nd grade and doing fine. He never seems to want to spend time with his family, mom, dad, and younger brother. After about 10 minutes of hanging out, he leaves to play by himself in another room. He can do this for many hours. I used to ask him to come back. Now I just let him go. Is there anything I can do, or should I just leave him alone? Thanks.
Well, that's it's such a good question, and I'm sure a lot of people have this type of question too. And for the kids that we work with on the spectrum, a lot of times you'll see that they prefer to be alone or play alone, and that's what we've thought of is that it just is not reinforcing for them to be with other people as much as you see in typical populations. And so, a lot of times for neurotypical 7-year-olds, they'll want to be with their siblings or their family, and then you'll start to see this as they get older, not so much. But that's pretty typical as children grow up, that they don't necessarily want to spend as much time with their family. But for a 7-year-old, you would expect that spending time with family, especially if you're doing games or fun activities, movies, something like that, that it would be reinforcing. But for our kids, it's just sometimes not. So a lot of times we have to contrive the reinforcers to do it, and so over time, it becomes more reinforcing for them to hang out with their family. So at first, you would probably want to start with, if you say your child spends about 10 to 20 minutes and then goes off and plays by himself, and set a goal. Say, okay, maybe 25 minutes tonight, right. and then you can go play with whatever game he plays alone or whatever, and then over time increase that by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you might have to even build in more reinforcing items for your child during that activity as well. So it's definitely something that's possible. I wouldn't suggest just giving up and saying go let your child play alone. It is good for children to play alone sometimes, of course, and be able to engage with items independently and sustain independent play. But you also want to work on some of these social interactions, and you won't be able to do that if your child's playing alone.
Okay, so up the ante, make sure that it's reinforcing for them to play with it, give them a reward for having done it, up the time slowly, the amount of time that they'll do it, but definitely don't give up.
Yes.
It's really important that they find it reinforcing to be around other people, and 7's a great age to be working on that. It's not, it's not as if it's way too late. You'll set them up for great success as teenagers and adults. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to take on another question that you guys have written in, and Angela Persicke, BCBA, will be answering that for you. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. In the studio with us right now is board-certified behavior analyst Angela Persicke. As we've said before, she has extensive experience working with children on the autism spectrum and is the assistant director of the Autism Research Group. You guys just had a great event on Wednesday about teaching perspective taking. I understand that went really well.
It did. We had a really good turnout. It was primarily geared towards BCBAs or BCABAs or other practitioners. And we had a lot of good feedback, and it was a really great workshop, and we're looking forward to planning our next one.
I wanted to get there so badly, and it did not work out. We've had all kinds of construction around our building and mayhem. You can't get anywhere from anywhere to anywhere in any kind of timely way, so I'm bummed out that I missed it, but I'll try to see if we can't make it happen for the next one. In any case, Angela is answering your questions live right now. The next question we had this morning, excuse me, my son is 4 years old. he is, and I'm not sure in terms of the phrasing of this, he's now in early intervention, or we did an early intervention. I'm not clear whether they did it or they're in it now. But I didn't see much improvement. Is that common? And I love this question because so many people write in and say, yeah, we heard early intervention and we did that, and we tried it for 2 weeks, or we tried it for 6 weeks or 6 months, and we didn't see any improvement, so we stopped. And now the child is like 8, and they say, did I mess up? So I think it's really important that we talk about early intervention and what the expectation should be, and when you should stop.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
First of all, it's not common that we don't see any progress in early intervention. And so the first question you should ask is about the quality of the agency providing the early intervention. So maybe talk to the supervisor that's on the case, the team, and look at the number of hours that your child was given, because the research shows that beginning early intervention, the best outcomes are greater than 25 hours a week starting out, and that's for about 2 to 3 years. And that's when we see the best outcomes. Also, look at the goals and the priorities that they were targeting during early intervention. There are often cases where they're not targeting the correct skills. Maybe they're targeting too advanced skills, or and so the prerequisite skills are not even in place yet. And so you won't see a lot of progress if the child is continually failing on these skills that the prerequisites are still not learned. So look at that, see if the skills and the goals that are just too advanced for your child. And that happens a lot. And then also, there are some other things that maybe you didn't see a lot of skill acquisition, but maybe look at has your child's behaviors, challenging behaviors, decreased? Because that's an important aspect of early intervention too. If we start out with a child who has a lot of severe behavior problems, we are going to start with those and get those under control before we even start teaching any skill acquisition type of targets. So definitely question some of the things that were part of the early intervention program. And like you said as well, how long did you stick with it? So in addition to how many hours a week, how long did you actually try it out? We don't expect to see many larger gains, especially on standardized tests. We rarely ever see gains on standardized measures until at least a year or two. So look at also what you're considering improvement. So is your child learning these smaller skills that maybe has not translated into a skill that you actually want to see, this like larger skills, such as even being able to communicate needs. But that often takes a lot of smaller skills, and maybe your child has been progressing in those smaller skill areas and hasn't made it to these larger skills yet either.
I agree with all of that, Angela, and how important it is. And I just want to go back and reference some of the things. And talking about that 25 to 40 hours a week, imagine if you decided that you wanted to start going to the gym and you wanted to get ripped. Like you wanted to be somebody who was going to go and compete, or what the movie stars do when they need to get ripped for a movie or get that kind of muscle tone. They don't go to the gym 1 hour a week, and they don't go 1 hour a day, and they don't go 2 hours a day. When we watch things like, Greatest Loser, those people are in the gym 4, 5, and 6 hours a day, because they need to see those results in a rapid period of time. And it's kind of like that with ABA with our kids, that, it's not that it's not going to be a benefit to a child to do 1 hour, but you're not going to see the results. You're really not going to see them. So 25 to 40 hours has got to be a must. I absolutely agree with that. And the idea of knowing what your goals are, when I think about, we had to do parent training first before we started our ABA program, and they have a rule that you can't get your parent training from the same place that you're going to get your ABA. I don't know why. Maybe it's so that you appreciate appreciate when you get with a good ABA. Maybe. But I remember one of the things, and I thought that our parent training was actually pretty good, but one of the things that bugged me to no end was that the person was talking to me about, well, you want to start working with pennies and teaching your child how to count to 20. And I stopped him at one point. I said, no, we want to work on getting my child to be able to sit in a chair. How about we work on that, pal, before, you know what I mean? And I was like, that's all very well and good, and I want him to be able to count up to 20 on pennies, but I want to be able to walk down the street and hold. It's got to be substantive, and it's got to start at the right place. It's got to make sense. If what they want to do is start cursive writing and your child has no means of communicating, then what are you going to be doing? And I got to say to all of our parents out there, you have got to get your Norma Ray on, get your head straight about the fact that this is a minimum 2-year commitment. And you're tracking the progress and knowing that your child is making progress on substantive goals, but you really can't say I did my all unless you can say that you had a minimum of 25 hours of quality ABA for 2 years. And I will tell you, and look at the seriousness of my face, I have never heard a parent ever, and all the parents that I have met and talked to and emailed and been, I have never met a parent who said, I did more than 25 hours of ABA for a minimum of 2 years, and I saw no substantive, huge, life-changing improvement. I have not heard that tale, not one. So I know sometimes in the beginning, I remember my son in the first year, I was like, well, when are we going to get to this? When is he going to talk to me in a sentence? When is this going to happen? And at the end of the year, when I saw what he had accomplished, game changer. Game changer. But you can't really, you can't give up. It's hard. And you feel like, why am I doing this? Remember me saying, because every single person who has said life-changing. Now, it's different for everybody what those life-changing things are. For some kids, it's that, they can communicate on an iPad. For other kids, it's that they can set the table, and for other kids, it means that they can now have conversations with peers without anybody helping them. It's different, but they're all life-changing. So hang in. Yeah. If you left, go back, make sure it's that quality ABA provider. I, of course, always say, I recommend CARD because I know that they can get it done and that they will, and they're in more places than any place else, but there are other great ABA providers out there too. Ask your local support group, but get her done, as they say.
And make sure you have a qualified board-certified behavior analyst on the team as well, or at least as a consultant who has experience with children with autism and early intervention.
Yeah. This is not the time to be trying out your cousin's wife who just decided to hang out a shingle because she wants to help kids with autism. Make sure that you have a qualified BCBA who has that experience, because there are a lot of BCBAs who have suddenly decided, because insurance is covering autism treatment, that now they're going to open up, but they've only ever worked in corporate BCBA stuff before. So do some recon, ask other parents as well. Okay, so we're going to continue on with another question. We're not going to take a break. So our next question that just came in, I got a phone call from my 5-year-old school discussing his lack of play skills development. What, in your opinion, is the most effective technique for teaching play skills?
So this is another great question, and it's one of those things that typically we think, play skills, just all children are able to play. Yeah. They're able to play, and they find pleasure in play. But as we've seen many times from kids on the spectrum, they don't inherently enjoy playing. It's not reinforcing to play with others or even play by themselves with objects and anything like that. And so what we have to do, this is similar to the question before with engaging with your family and hanging out with your family, you have to contrive reinforcers at first to make those items become reinforcers, to establish them as reinforcers. And we have a lot of research behind this as conditioning items as reinforcers. And what you do is you take a known reinforcer, and for some of these kids, it might be their favorite food. That might be really a lot of all you have to do this. But a known reinforcing item, and just pair it with the toy or the object or whatever interaction you're trying to establish as a reinforcer. If it's something like interactive play, beginning with a younger child, just tickles or things like that, you still want to pair this known reinforcing item with that. So immediately provide the reinforcing item after you engage with the child or give that toy to the child. And you don't even have to initially see any interaction with the toy. It's just setting it up so those things are associated.
Right. Really, and I also want to put a thing in here saying if you're looking for the curriculum for how to teach play skills, go to Skills. Yep. You can go to Skills Global. Is it Skills for Autism or skillsglobal.com? Skillsforautism.com. Go to that site and you can do a trial membership and check it out to see, but there is a whole curriculum in teaching play. Yep. It was so eye-opening to me the first time a therapist said you need to understand that for our kids on the autism spectrum, sometimes it feels like work. Mm-hmm. And the comparison I always use is that game, Angry Birds, I'm sorry, I don't get it. And to me, that's work. If I have to play that with my son, I'm like, oh, when will it end? And there are people and Candy Crush, and there are lots of games I will play, but Candy Crush, I'm like, seriously? I don't get it, folks, I don't get it. But other people find it really reinforcing, and I think to myself, if I had to make Candy Crush reinforcing for me, what would I have to do? You'd have to make it very exciting for me. And then I would probably get to the point where it became exciting to me.
Yes, it's a really important area that a lot of times we don't focus on in early intervention. A lot of clinicians don't focus on in early interventions because you're expecting the child to have these activities that he or she enjoys. And a lot of times there are those activities, but they're inappropriate. Right. So children play with toys, but they don't play with them in a functional way.
Right, they might throw them. Mm-hmm. Or we've got kids who are playing with their poop because that's reinforcing to them instead of playing with the toy, right? And that's like the extreme, but there are everything in between. So, but we can make toys reinforcing. And in the coming weeks, 2 weeks from this week, we're doing our toy festival, where we're going to talk about toys that will be of particular interest to our kids on the spectrum. But the truth is you can make toys reinforcing by pairing it with reinforcement like Angela was talking about. And Skills can help you so that you can go through a progression of all the different types of play. And again, you can go and try the trial membership, but also we're going to be giving away one Skills subscription for a 6-month period, one a week starting next week on Wednesday. That's great. For 5 weeks leading up to the Christmas break. So, you definitely want to be tuning in to the show, because we'll flash a word on the screen and then you can write in the word, and of the people that say it correctly, we're going to randomly give that away. But play, super duper important that we make that reinforcing for our kids, especially if they're 5, because later on, and we know we've already seen this even today, when you get to the kids who are 14 and they don't know how to occupy their time and they don't know how to play with different things. Maybe you get the 14-year-old who only plays one computer program and can't do anything else, and then parents go, what do I need to do? There's still things you can do then, but if you start it when they're 5, you'll get a really well-rounded child. It'll help with social skills, help with executive function skills.
And just to emphasize how important play is, again, once your child gets older, like you said, you don't want them to focus on one thing, but also if your child has a repertoire of play activities and being able to engage in different activities, it will really help with social interaction a little bit later, especially 7-8-year-olds who begin to play together at school and for play dates. And if your child has these skills and is able to play and enjoy play and find reinforcement in play, it's much easier to work in playing with others.
And I would say to you too, make sure that, and this is a place where I went wrong and I learned from skills, make sure that in your child's IEP that you include, since the school is calling you with this problem, get them involved. Put some play skills in their IEP, and I didn't know until this last year when I came in with some goals from my son's skills program and said, here are some things I want him working on, and they said, oh, well then we probably should get a recreational therapist on the case. A what? I didn't even know there was such an animal. But he was evaluated by a recreational therapist, and that's the only place that he has any kind of an aid is during his lunch and break. He has somebody who's there to facilitate him playing with the other kids. So you could ask for that at 5 instead of asking for it at 10. And that would be a really cool thing. So skills helps with all of these things. So you'll have the IEP language right there that you can bring it in to school and say, since you brought this up, how about you provide this?
And Skills it gives you the actual IEP goals in the written format, so you just have to print them.
It's a lovely, lovely thing. Trust me, it made such a difference for my son. Well, we are out of time. Thank you so much. We're going to take one quick break to come out and finish the show, but thank you so much for being with us. Stick with us for the end. Another parent wants to know, how do I find out that one thing that my kid is really good at?
Now, when they get older, they're going to kind of divide into two groups. You're going to have the kids that become verbal, and then you're going to have the kids that are nonverbal, got many more problems. Maybe they still have epilepsy or some other problem. And they kind of need different services. And the ones that get verbal, what we need to be doing with them is develop the area of strength. And that area of strength often will show up around 3rd or 4th grade, sometimes earlier, but my ability in art showed up when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, and it was always encouraged. And I was encouraged to do lots of different kinds of art. Otherwise, it would have just been endless horse heads. You know, Mother would say to me, why don't you draw a picture of a beach or something else? You want to broaden it out. If the kid's fixated on trains, let's teach reading with trains, math with trains. Tap into that fixation, but develop the area of strength. Some kids it's going to be art. Other kids it's going to be mathematics. So you got a 3rd grader who's smart in math, and he wants a 6th grade math book. Give him the 6th grade math book. Don't bore him with the baby stuff. But that kid's going to have trouble with reading, because the common thing is the uneven skills. And then you have the kids that are the history buffs, and these kids are often really good at writing skills. You tend to have uneven skills, but tap into their fixations and use those to motivate, but broaden. If he likes trains, just watching them, well, we're going to take that interest in trains to do some math with it, or maybe read about the history of the railroad. You know, tap into that motivation. One of the things I really want to talk about is we got to stretch these kids. I'm not talking about physically stretching them, mentally stretching them to do new things. I'm seeing too many kids that haven't learned how to shop, how to order food at McDonald's. So you start out, let's say it's ordering food at McDonald's or at Burger King. So you take them up there and they watch you order it. And then eventually you go in when the store's not busy, and they have to go up and order it while you're sitting at the table watching, and then you coach them. And then eventually they can go in the restaurant themselves. I can remember I was scared to go to the lumber yard alone and buy lumber. And Mother made me go. And she knew I could do it. I had bought lumber with her many times. But there's a tendency to want to have somebody else there when they do it, and they've got to learn how to do things alone. And you gradually have got to kind of push it. You've got to stretch them. And I'm seeing too many kids not learning basic skills. Saw a 19-year-old honor student that actually knows how to drive that had never shopped in the grocery store all by herself. That is just ridiculous. You know, you've got to stretch them. You push too hard, there can be panic. And the other thing is no surprises. No surprises. I knew all about the ranch long before I went there. I'd talked to Ann. But if you don't stretch these kids, they don't grow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here at the end of the show here on Thursday, Epilepsy Awareness Day. To all of our friends out there on and off the spectrum who deal with seizures, we support you today. We are going to be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That will be 1 p.m. Eastern time. We hope that you'll do the math in whatever time zone that you're in. And we will have a very special guest tomorrow. Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is going to be here. We call it Science Beat with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. So he'll be talking about research and things of that nature. Somebody had written in on the live feature about a study done by Washington University using a Makoto, I hope I'm saying it right, a Makoto arena. And so I'm going to look that up and we'll get back to you about that. And I also want to take just a couple of seconds to go over, because starting next Wednesday, we are going to be giving away a lot of stuff. Good stuff. And so I want to encourage you to sign up for our newsletter, but also, and that'll give you more information about it, what will be happening is that starting next Wednesday, at some point, every hour that we're on, a word will flash on the screen for a couple of seconds. It will not be accompanied by any noise, so you'll literally have to be watching the show. And the word will only be up for a couple of seconds. So you'll want to write down the word, and then you're going to want to email us what the word is. And we will take all of the correct answers, and we will choose at random somebody to give whatever that item is. Some of it is toys, some of it is skill subscriptions. There is a plethora of things. My office is full to the brim with good stuff to be giving away. It could be stuff that you give as a gift to someone on your gift giving list, or something that you keep for yourself. So all kinds of things. So you'll want to watch the screen. Now, if you're thinking, I don't watch the show live, Shannon, it's okay, because we're giving you until 7 a.m. Pacific time the next morning to write in. So that's starting next Wednesday during next week's Ask Dr. Doreen. Next week is a very short week for us, only Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday during that week. So we'll do the show tomorrow, and then the next time we'll be back is for Ask Dr. Doreen on Wednesday. So until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.